Good evening. The Prime Minister has said there can only be one answer now to Hitler, but he won't make an announcement until tomorrow. That's the headline tonight, Saturday the 2nd of September 1939. Hitler has not responded to Britain's ultimatum. Mr. Chamberlain is still hoping he might. The opposition leader has warned of the dangers of delay. The nation, he said, should know tonight if it's war. Poland is fighting for her life under attack from air and sea. The Empire says it stands with Britain, one king, one flag, one cause. Britain will know tomorrow whether the country is to go to war with Germany. The Prime Minister told the House of Commons earlier this evening that Hitler had not replied to the British ultimatum about Poland. Mr. Chamberlain was pressed by MPs to make a declaration tonight. The leader of the opposition told him that every minute's delay endangered life and imperilled the nation's honour. Mr. Chamberlain said he would end the uncertainty tomorrow, but he indicated that only one course of action now seemed possible. Our political editor, Christopher Jones.
At 7:30 this evening, and after yet another emergency cabinet meeting, Mr. Chamberlain drove through massive crowds at Westminster to this unique Saturday Commons sitting, there to face the added strain of mounting criticism that the government was unsure and was vacillating, and then after keeping MPs waiting for several hours to face their frustration that he had little new to tell them. There'd been no reply from Berlin to our latest note. Mr. Chamberlain added to an increasingly disbelieving House that perhaps that was because of a new proposal by Signor Mussolini for an international peace conference. But, said the Prime Minister, His Majesty's government will be bound to take action unless German forces are withdrawn from Polish territory. When the Deputy Labour leader, Mr. Greenwood, rose to speak, there were shouts of "Speak for England, Arthur," from MPs who were anxious that the nation's determination must somehow be made clear. Why had the Prime Minister no new information, asked Mr. Greenwood. This incessant strain must stop, and the sooner the better. I wonder how long we are prepared to vacillate at a time when Britain and all that Britain stands for and human civilization is in peril, he said. And the Liberal leader, Sir Archibald Sinclair, said we must demonstrate to the world we would not tolerate delay in fulfilment of our honourable obligations to Poland. Mr. Chamberlain, I thought, seemed surprised and distressed at these criticisms. We must, he said, take what might be a serious chance of avoiding a great catastrophe. But he added, I should be horrified if it was thought for one moment that we had betrayed the slightest weakening. Well, he'll make another statement to MPs tomorrow. I anticipate, said the Prime Minister, there is only one answer I shall be able to give you then.
The German attack on Poland continues, though it's reported that Polish forces are resisting strongly. German aircraft have launched raids on many towns and cities. The Polish embassy in London has said unfortified towns have been bombed and there have been many civilian casualties. Our Warsaw correspondent, Tim Sebastian, now reports.
The German army attacked again at dawn this morning from spearheads in East Prussia, the Corridor and Upper Silesia. Poland's army is said to be resisting effectively, but the onslaught from the air has intensified. As martial law was declared today throughout the country, the Inspector General of the Armed Forces warned the military they were fighting for Poland's survival. The enemy must pay with his blood, he said, for every step taken on our territory. Yesterday, heavy fighting was reported around the southern city of Katowice. A German armoured train and a handful of tanks were destroyed. Later, German bombers hit an evacuation train near Kutno. The casualties, women and children. In all, 18 Polish towns and cities have come under severe attack. Earlier today, an official communique spoke of around 300 people dead and hundreds wounded. 34 German aircraft are reported to have been shot down. In Danzig, fighting has centered around the Westerplatte, the munitions dump held and defended by a heavily outnumbered Polish unit. 3 times the Germans attacked them and were beaten off. Tonight, the army paid tribute to civilians in the capital, even as the enemy bombs screamed down on them. The bearing of the people has been exemplary, it said. Resolute calm has prevailed. With Poland under heavy and increasing threat, that calm is nothing short of extraordinary.
German propaganda ministry has released film from the front line in Poland. In the center of Danzig, German troops have surrounded the Polish post office, where hundreds of armed Polish civilians, mainly postmen and railway workers, have been holding out since early yesterday. At Westerplatte, the German training cruiser Schleswig-Holstein has entered the mouth of the Danzig River and is shelling a Polish munitions depot at a range of a few hundred yards. The Polish garrison there is believed to number 100 men at the most. The fighting is continued by night, and the Luftwaffe has been attacking the peninsula from the air.
Charles Wheeler reporting. According to a statement which is circulating tonight in Berlin, Germany has not declared war on Poland. The present hostilities should not, the statement says, be considered a condition of war. But tonight, German radio has warned people that air raids might be expected. They've been told to remain calm, have their gas masks ready and be prepared to go to the air raid shelters. The conscription bill has passed its second reading in the House of Commons. It provides for the call-up of all fit men between the ages of 18 and 41. The Minister of Labour, Ernest Brown, said it was not intended that any considerable number of men should be called up at the moment. But enlistment notices will be sent to those required for military service. There'll be provisions for postponement in cases of exceptional hardship. Steps will be taken to protect the manpower needed by industry. And there'll also be provisions for conscientious objectors.
With Britain on the brink of war, it's a time for the Nelson touch, and enroll they did. Old soldiers returned to the colours today in preparation for what now looks the inevitable. All three armed services are fully mobilised. The territorials, women included, have also been mustered. An advance guard of the Australian Air Force is a witness of the Empire's rallying to the cause, not just in spirit, but with fighting men. Indian troops reflect the British ability to draw upon resources way beyond these islands of ours. Nationwide, the khaki battle dress is a familiar sight as our own troops assemble, crisscrossing the land to their bases to be kitted out for the looming conflict. The King yesterday signed an order in council for the mobilisation of the Army and Air Force. The fleet went on to a war footing earlier in the week. Every edition of the newspapers is seized upon for the news that is both sought and feared, for the apocalypse which now can surely only be the culmination of this turbulent week. The threat of war has proved a spur to weddings. It's been a record day at London's sandbagged register office, with couples cancelling church ceremonies for the sake of speed. Usually shut at midday on Saturday, offices stayed open till 6 this evening. Confetti before the storm.
From Britain's dominions have come messages of support and offers of help. Mr. R.G. Menzies, the Australian Prime Minister, has said the British nations throughout the world are at one. One king, one flag, one cause. We stand with Britain. From Canada, Prime Minister Mackenzie King has said Canada will stand at Britain's side. Canadian forces have been mobilised. And Mr. Peter Fraser, the acting Prime Minister of New Zealand, has offered the fullest assurance of all possible support. Here, the government has emphasised that the blackout tonight must be total. Everyone at home or travelling by road or rail must follow the instructions. The government has repeated its advice about what to do in the event of air raids. A report from Paul Burden.
The government warned that the major cities in the eastern half of the country are most at risk. The ARP service has issued comprehensive guidelines on how to minimise the danger of injury during an air raid. The unbreakable rule is, when you hear the air raid warning, take cover in one of the large communal shelters provided by local councils, or in your own shelter if you have one. If you cannot get to a shelter, a downstairs corridor or a small room with a minimum window area will protect against almost everything except a direct hit. The greatest danger to life is not the blast from the explosion, but splinters from bombs and from anti-aircraft shells. Recent bombing raids in Spain show that some of the worst damaged property can be caused by fire. Meanwhile, the Lord Privy Seal's office is expressing concern that not all householders have appreciated the need for a total blackout. Many have overlooked small windows, particularly fan lights over doors, basement windows and skylights. Light spilling onto the pavement from an open door constitutes a major breach of the regulations. The government have issued a reminder that ARP wardens have the full authority of the law. Put out that light is an order, not an invitation.
The London Civil Defence Headquarters has tonight asked all members of rescue and demolition parties and stretcher parties in the County and City of London to report as quickly as possible to their appointed places of assembly. Men serving in the London Fire Brigade have now been placed on continuous duty. They will not be home tonight. The air raid warning system has been placed in full operation. From now on, the sounding of all factory sirens and hooters is prohibited, except for giving air raid warnings. The Postmaster General has announced that because of the heavy demand on the telephone system, the shilling trunk call has been suspended until further notice. One other piece of news tonight, the wreck of the submarine Thetis, which was accidentally sunk in Liverpool Bay, is expected to be beached tomorrow. She'll be brought back to Birkenhead, still carrying the bodies of the 99 men who died inside her 3 months ago. A report from Christopher Lee.
It's 3 months since the Thetis sailed from Camel-Liard's yard at Birkenhead for tests in Liverpool Bay. She started her diving trials at 1:30 and failed to surface. On board, 103 officers, ratings and dockyard personnel and just 36 hours air supply. Next morning, June the 3rd, a destroyer, HMS Brazen, sighted her stern and lowered rescue boats. The crew tapped out messages on the hull. All on board the submarine were then alive. And as relatives waited ashore for news of the submarine, 3 sailors and a Camel-Laird representative managed to use the escape hatch. But further rescue attempts failed. The rest of the ship's company and dockyard men perished. Today's operation is centred on a converted collier, the Zelo. The salvage team has managed so far to pass 8 9-inch thick steel slings from the Zelo around the Thetis and in effect carry the submarine back on high tides. When she's finally beached, Stoker Arnold, one of the men who escaped in June, has volunteered to enter the boat. And if the operation is successful, the Admiralty plans to repair the submarine, rename her and send her to join the fleet.
Finally, sport and today's First Division football results. Arsenal 5, Sunderland 2, Drake scoring 4 times for the Arsenal at Highbury. Blackburn 2, Everton 2, last season's top scorer Lawton getting both goals for league champions Everton. Blackpool go top of the table this evening with a 2-0 win against Wolverhampton. A bad defeat for cup holders Portsmouth going down 2-1 at Bolton. Brentford beat Huddersfield 1-0 and Charlton gained a 2-0 victory over Manchester United. Derby County 1, Aston Villa 0. Grimsby 2, Preston North End 0. Leeds 0, Sheffield United 1. Liverpool beat Chelsea 1-0 and Middlesbrough are still anchored firmly at the bottom of the table despite managing a 2-2 draw with Stoke. The day has been hot and sunny in most places, but tonight, as darkness fell, violent thunderstorms have shaken much of the country. Across Britain, the nation waits. The Cabinet is meeting again tonight. In the morning, it's expected we will hear that we are at war. And that was the news on this night, Saturday the 2nd of September 1939. From the BBC in London, good night.